Can you guys hear me okay? Is that good? I've spent my life being the loud kid in class, being told to shh and talk more softly. So when I have to talk loud, it's counterintuitive sometimes. It's a pleasure being with you. I want to tell two stories to kind of help focus us on what we're facing this election. Before I do that, I want to just say what an honor it is to serve this community. I've been serving the State House in Acworth and Kennesaw for a few years now. I've been raising our 4 kids in this community. In fact, I've talked to some parents whose kids are in the school my wife teaches in Cornerstone. And this community is worth fighting for. You know, we've been really, really committed. So thankful for Kelly Gambrill and others who care about this community. Preserving the specialness that West Cobb is really matters. And I can tell you, we balance that, looking after West Cobb, with also the battle at the state capitol of looking after our state. You know, our state, if you haven't noticed, is a special place in this country. You know, our state is a battleground area when it comes to elections, but most folks in Georgia have the common sense values that folks here share. And there's an all-out battle. The all-out battle we're facing in our state is really being led by a lady I've served with for 12 years in the Georgia House of Representatives named Stacey Abrams. I can tell you, I know her very, very well. Sat next to her in committee for 12 years. And I can tell you, she has big plans for this state. And I can tell you the plans are not going to suit many of us. There is a lot at stake this election, and our actions, what we do as individuals, is going to make the difference. So what I want to talk to you about today is not me. I represent kind of the common sense values I think of most folks here. Of preserving, you know, what makes America great, what makes Georgia great. But I want to tell you today, I want to equip and activate you guys to understand how to be a difference maker this election with so much at stake and so much hanging in the balance at the ballot box. I want to do that by telling 2 stories. The first one is last year, or the last cycle in 2020, I was knocking on doors off of Acworth, Dallas Highway. I was walking in a neighborhood across the street from Alatoona High School, and I walked up, I knocked on the door of a African-American couple. Dad and mom were about 39 years old, and I'm talking to Dad on the front doorstep, and I can tell by their voting history they were consistent, or at least Dad was a consistent Democrat voter. So when you go to door in a general election, not in a primary. Primary is Republican versus Republican, but in a general election, it's Republican versus Democrat. So as a Republican candidate running for office in a district that's about 48 or 49% Republican, you don't talk to your own people. You go talk to folks who are in the middle or who are on the other side that are convincible. That was my entire life in the fall of 2020. So I want to challenge you guys with 2 things. Talk to folks who are kind of in the mushy middle, could go either way, and then activate folks who agree with us so that the people around them who are maybe not in the habit of voting show up. And I'm going to tell you 2 stories to kind of hammer that home. But this couple, this African-American young man named Jonathan off of Dallas Acworth, Iowa, I was talking to him on his front porch, and after we talked about 5 minutes, he said, well, Mr. Setzler, where are you on the life issue? So I told him I was pro-life and explained what that meant. He said, thank you for that. That's the number 1 issue to me is pro-life. An elected official I support's got to be pro-life. Now, in the back of my mind, this is a person that's only voted Democrat their entire life. I thought, well, that's great. This is a great point. So he asked me the second question. He asked me what I believed about his words were biblical marriage. I told him where I was on those issues. Well, thank you for that. I'm right with you. That's number 2 issue for me. And as his wife, as we're continuing our conversation, his wife walked out the door, and she's gleaming, this glowing young lady, late 30s, and she said, hey, Ed, my wife's really excited we're talking. First of all, we're impressed you're going door to door, because she and I used to go door to door for her dad back in Kenya. He was the mayor of our hometown. We used to go door to door in his campaigns. So it matters a lot to us that you're doing that. Secondly, she's a Republican. We're both believers. And she's a Republican. She's been trying to convince me for years and years to vote Republican. But I never really was comfortable trusting Republicans. But I can trust you. And what I was part of on that front doorstep off of Dallas Acworth Highway was a generational conversation. It just wasn't just about one election. It was about a person who believes in the common sense conservative values that make our nation great, but had as he came to this country as a foreigner, just kind of adopted the belief that I should be voting for Democrats, not really understanding the issues. His wife had been working on him for years, and he never came to trust a Republican until he talked to me on his doorstep. I share that with you because that was not a one election cycle conversation. That was a generational conversation. That's going to impact their kids. It's going to impact the way their family views politics in America for years and years and years to come. And as I walked away, great talking to him, I said, well, by the way, where was your father-in-law? Where was the mayor? I think a small town in Kenya. Oh, he was the mayor of Nairobi. I said, what? Yeah, Nairobi, 9 million people. He said, Melissa's dad was the mayor of Nairobi? Oh, yeah, he was. He was an evangelical IT business, internet business, computer company business owner, software business, that took on the son of Jomo Kenyatta, who was the founder of modern-day Kenya. He beat the political establishment in Kenya as an upstart grassroots candidate to try to bring transparency and honesty to government. So you've got a couple who comes from a leadership class in their foreign country. They're coming to America trying to figure out what it means to be involved in politics. And those door-to-door conversations I have or that you have with your neighbors can be generational conversations about what the family thinks about public life for their lives, their kids' lives, and generations to come. I want you guys to engage your neighbors who are maybe confused about what the Republican Party stands for. They may look at Republican candidates and not like their behavior, their personal choices, but it's really bigger than that, right? So I want to challenge you guys to engage the people who are on the mushy middle, maybe back and forth, maybe decidedly think they're Democrat, but don't realize perhaps how radical the party of Stacey Abrams is in 2022. Second story I want to tell you is not about convincing the convincible. That was story one. Story two is turning out those that agree with us, but have people in their lives who maybe don't vote as a habit. 2018, I was going door to door in Acworth, and again, a very tight election. And I walked up on the Saturday before the election. And the Saturday before the election, I walked up to a family. They were non-Republican voters, late 50s, rang the doorbell. The guy came to me, Ed, hey, thanks for coming out. We're with you, man. My wife and I voted for you last week. Hey, put a sign in the yard. It was exciting. But I wasn't there to talk to him and his wife. I knew him and his wife were going to vote. I said, hey, man, appreciate that. I didn't really come to talk to you today. We had a laugh about that. I said, I'm here to talk to Mallory. And my data says there's a third voter in this household. Mallory is a 26-year-old daughter who votes Republican usually. And he looked off and said, well, Mallory's in graduate school. And I said, graduate school? Where's she in graduate school? He said, North Carolina State. I said, this is the Saturday before the election. She hasn't voted yet. Is Mallory driving home from Raleigh on Tuesday to vote? He looked off and said, no. And I said, you're killing me, man. I said, guys, I had this conversation with him. In 2018, 2020, Democrat families, mom, dad, and one adult voter outvoted Republican families, mom, dad, and 3 kids. Why'd they outvote Republican families with 3 kids? Because they wanted it. They wanted it that bad. They wanted it. Democrat moms in 2020, and I say moms because it's the matriarchs that make this happen. Dads sometimes do it, but it's really mom that kind of whips the butt of the kids to make sure they turn out, or make sure the grandma gets picked up from the nursing home and goes to the polls or votes absentee. That conversation happening right now is the difference maker. We not only need to talk to those that are convincible, we need to turn those out that are with us, but have grandmothers in nursing homes, or kids off in graduate school, or their daughter is registered to vote here in Brookstone but lives in Decatur with her buddy who she's in law school with and has to drive home to vote. Those conversations need to be had right now. And the people in this room understanding what it takes to win elections will have mom and dad with 3 adult kids put 5 votes on the board. That's what it takes to win. Stacey Abrams will outraise Brian Kemp at least 2-1, maybe 3-1. Herschel Walker's being outraised 5-1. They're going to spend more money bending the truth with a twisted value system to try to convince Georgians there was right. And if we don't show up, if we don't engage and activate family networks to put every vote on the board, we could very easily lose. So that's what I'm here to talk to you guys about today. I'd be honored to serve this community in the state Senate. Glad to talk to you about any issues. But what will cause us to win from top to the bottom of the ticket is Republicans turning out every vote and us talking to folks who are neighbors, maybe across the fence, maybe family members of ours who are kind of teetering and maybe confused about what party really represents their values. So with that, I'm glad to chat with you today some more. I would be honored to serve this community in the state Senate. I appreciate you guys being here today. Thank you.